For 2 or 3 weeks towards the end of the year, Hawick in the Scottish borders held a market once a week for the sale of sheep for slaughter. People from all walks of life arrived in the town, and one of these was a man from Jedburgh who had the intention of buying a sheep. He was a poor man, but as he made his way towards the town, he was startled by a noise. He stopped to listen, and as his ears became accustomed, he heard the voices of many females. He looked round, but couldn't see them, and all he could make out were the words, "Oh, there's a bairn born, but there's nae sark to put on it." At first the man was perplexed. Where were those voices coming from? Then it dawned on him. Although he could still see nothing, he was savvy enough to know that it must be the fairy folk. There was no other explanation. He was right. It transpired this whole incident was due to the birth of a new fairy child, with all the fairies, with the exception of 1 or 2 who were looking for something to cover the baby with, all rejoicing at such a happy event. The old man, finding himself in the middle of this invisible scene, with no one else around to verify what he was hearing, took off his shirt and threw it down onto the ground. It was immediately grabbed by a tiny invisible hand, and the wailing of the baby ceased soon afterwards, but the loud sound of laughing and merriment continued with increased gusto. Believing he'd done something good, the man set off once more for Hawick, reflecting on what had just happened. He smiled dryly, but then his thoughts turned to the matter in hand, the purchase of a sheep. He reached Hawick and bought a sheep that he wanted for a good price, then returned to Jedburgh. It was said he had no regrets giving the fairy folk the shirt off his back, as from that time onwards, his wealth increased day by day, and he became a wealthy man. When he died, he was one of the richest in the district. He told people the story that he'd given the fairies his tattered and torn shirt to help them out, and they put his wealth down to that act of kindness. Perhaps if you're out walking and hear voices but no one else is around, it could just be celebrations on the birth of another fairy child. If you enjoyed this episode of Scotland's History, please like, comment and subscribe. Until next time, thank you for watching.